Back, a long time no see, and welcome to one of my most experimental sketchbooks. I kind of don't really know how experimental we can get, but here we go. So here we have some lines of emotion. This was from one of my drawing classes where we had to test different line forms, and I'm pretty sure I got it right. Here's a line collage for the very next day. It was more of just me making lines and cutting up stuff. It's very sticky. Here are some watercolor and acrylic paint swatches that I use for color experimentation. I kind of went all over the place, but I like the forms that they made. Here we have some caricatures. This was when I met a caricature artist near where I work, and I ended up working with him, and he taught me a lot of good lessons. And I got into the habit of drawing a lot of faces. And here are some more. These are mostly people that I saw around my area as well as on the train when I would make my commute to work. These were really fun to do, and they were very challenging. Next, we have Darla Doobie from Shazam. This is mainly me just demonstrating some watercolor techniques, but I really did enjoy drawing this one. And here is a swatch on the side. Here are some more caricatures. Mainly I am going with portraits and elongated faces, especially for the one at the bottom. Really enjoyed that one. Here are some more caricatures and more or less just permanent drawings that I had to practice in order to get used to the new medium. It was very fun, especially the eye on the corner. And here I have some of my favorite ones, especially the monkey in the far right, bottom left actually, as well as the presidential caricature. And the eyes at the very top are one of my favorites here. So here we have some more of the eye experimentation with dry brush skin tones, and really still like how some of these turned out, very much. Here are some more caricatures, and these were more or less to test wrinkles, and yeah, that was kind of it for these. There's not too much I can explain. Here is a swamp backdrop for a cave that I drew all in pen, and this one was weird because of the textures that I tried to make, but I failed. So yeah. Here's another quick caricature I did of, I was at a fair with an artist, and I just drew random people as they walked along. So you'll see a couple of these. Here's another one. This guy actually sat down to do this, and he really liked it. And we have some more. This woman, yeah, I kind of messed up on the lips, but it was a win for me because I got to practice it more. So yeah, it's a little bit worse than the previous, but I still like it. Here is a weirder one with the big mouth style. Don't watch the show, but I like what I did with the nose, which is one of the main parts. Here as well, the artist always instructed me to start with the nose. The nose here did work though. And here is one of my favorites of this entire sketchbook, the Batman in the Che Guevara style painting I did. This took a couple of hours to properly coordinate because I wasn't sure how many of the styles and colors I wanted to incorporate into this one page. Here's a link right there to go look. I started with a lot of good thumbnails, but it was very difficult to pick out which one I wanted. For here, this is a composition piece for my class that consisted of just a few different areas done in a different rendering style. So you got color pencil, watercolor, and ink. Here is, well, you kind of can't see some of the red, but this was a sketch of some seniors I did at bingo at one of my local malls when I ended up sitting with them for a few hours. Here, another one of my favorites is the ballerina piece featuring some various ballerina poses. The main thing I like here was a lot of the reflections that I ended up putting in simply because of the watercolor aspect of it. Here are some quick pose sketches just to get the practice in. You can go to quickposes.com if you want to try these as well. Most of these were just 5 or 10 minutes, well, a few seconds actually. Here are some thumbnails for my painting class that required me to do an experimental painting to see where my style was. And here we're getting to the good stuff, right? So these are thumbnails for a painting that I was doing and I've completely finished. We have birds on the side as well too, but the main thumbnail I took, and on the next page I ended up turning into a full and complete sketch of one of my characters. This is one character in 2 different time periods, so just to avoid any confusion. You can actually check out this painting right here and just enjoy that video as well. Once I got the idea of doing this one, I kind of jumped into painting everything and kind of got out of the way. So here I have a small grouping of silhouetted people at the bottom, but this is mainly India ink and petroleum jelly that I mixed up to make a cool, very almost gouache-like paste. Not really a paint, but I could lay it down with a brush. It was weird. I loved it. So the next one, we have a small and very quick watercolor. Just of a sun and horizon with the sky. I like the green textures I went with here, but overall the sky could have had some more symmetrical lines, I should say, not anything going across. But this was an odd one too. This one was a forest, well, backwoods actually, leading into a lake. And since I was sitting outside, I had a lot of duck friends and some squirrels, so I drew some of them as well. So getting over the Batman first, here is a lakefront that's actually a continuation of the sketch from the other page, which I also did ink first and then watercolored over. So for here I have some, well, 2 characters from Fairly Odd Parents, Timmy Turner and the other new girl that I don't even know, as well as the Batman who laughs in the middle of the sketch. And here are some more caricatures and test models, well, test body parts, I should say. Eyes, noses, and all such, the most important things of anatomy when you need to draw. And speaking of important body parts, some more noses. This is about like 50 noses, and again, when doing caricatures, always start with the nose, just like this one here. I kind of messed up on the side with the darker area, but it worked for this character because the woman I was working off of had a few elongated features. So did this guy as well, and I threw in the glasses for extra measure. And before I go on, let me show you Nima. So I got a very odd idea, you can check the link up here for the video. But I really enjoyed drawing her from just a few lines on the bleed edge of the paper. Here's some more caricatures. I love the gentleman in the bottom, mainly because of his head shape. He looked very much like a candy bar, and it was kind of funny the way he was shaped compared to what I drew. And here, some more caricature and practice. This right here is mainly watercolor and me testing different skin tones, especially for darker skinned characters. It did help a lot, and you'll see how much it actually helped with this Will Smith caricature I did. This one's a bit more proportioned and controlled, but you can see where it's a bit disproportionate as well. I experimented with a whole lot of different browns as well as some yellows to get this skin tone. And speaking of these caricatures, these I forgot to actually watercolor, so oof. But I still did enjoy these because of how much work it didn't take me, because yeah. Here, I'm learning how to draw baby caricatures, and they are just circles and circles. That's Nicolas Cage at the bottom as well. This baby should have had a cigar, but I don't know. It's odd. So here, this is getting into my drawing class. These are some warm-ups. The teacher at the time had us drawing a lot of breakfast items and some roses. So it was a fun week that first couple of days. And it was a downright fun experience, honestly. Here we have a contour drawing, which is more or less just a continuous line of one person or an object. And we actually did another one here. I did this one blind, so if it looks as similar as the other one, that's kind of, I have no idea how, but it was good, and I did enjoy this one as well. It's good practice for a medium that you aren't familiar with. Here are some line control tests, mainly just hatching from line to line, as well as curve, or at least showing 3D motion and movement into a line. Here is a value sphere, where I just had to draw a sphere, label it, and get the various values on it. It was very fun, and showing the light sources, or at least the one here, was very, very hard, but challenged me. Here we have another challenge, some vehicles, planes, and such. I like the old-timey bike at the end, at the very bottom. That one I enjoyed the most for some odd reason. Here we have some value bar / gradient bars that I needed to experiment with. We have cross-hatching, hatching, and then some stippling in the middle. I enjoyed the stippling the most. Some more experimental and warm-ups for houses and buildings in general. We have a perspective and then 2 real houses and a Japanese style home that I forgot the name of. But I enjoyed these as well. So getting into perspective, because every drawing class needs perspective. I did most of these in HLED, so it's kind of hard to pick up on the camera. I apologize for that. But this is the 1-point perspective, and I really did enjoy doing this one. The 2-point perspective here, however, I kind of wanted something different, but since this was a class assignment, I didn't want to take it too far. Speaking of class assignments, and one I kind of did take too far, was this portrait design. So the main thing was the eyes that I wanted to get correct, but I kind of did the exact opposite and make them a bit cartoonish. But I still enjoyed making this one because it was a bit more of a challenge because I haven't done enough portrait studies. And speaking of studies, here you are with eyes and, again, all the other important body parts. And I also learned how to do skin tones as well. Here, I just copied some comic book panels in order to get line variation practice. And I think I did it right because these were fun. And when you're having fun doing this, you kind of always win. But the perspectives for some of these were very helpful. And speaking of perspective, the cave that I have on this second page was very interesting. I kind of just drew with some pen and it kind of just worked like that. And everything else worked right next to it as well. So these are some quick sketches of some costume designs that I wanted for a story I had been thinking of. They didn't go too far. So, some more ear studies, but that's kind of it for here. Some ear studies and some brush swatches for a brush pen that I got at the same time. Here we were practicing the heads, well, I forgot the actual, the heads thing. I completely forgot the name of it. But we had to do 2 poses and measure with heads. So yeah. Here are some more warm-ups. Here's a stippling one that I liked. I wanted to fill that entire page with stippling, but I had to control myself. We have a glass of water as well as a tree with 2 caves. I like the tree with 2 caves. I like doing forestry. It's pretty fun. So here we have a spooky blood portrait. The story behind this is very complicated, but I used a bit of watercolor and some brown paint to get some effects. And that's kind of where this came from. The assignment was to do a non-traditional medium, and when I found out blood was a very odd medium from an artist in particular, I went with it. And here is another sketch of Alexandrina that I will never finish. I have no idea what I wanted to do for this, but it is still a sight to look at. So here we have hands, Rocket Raccoon, and another stippling panel. Still very odd, but I kind of enjoyed this one too. The hands were difficult, but most of human anatomy is kind of difficult when you just jump into it with no real practice. Here, the assignment was to do a spoon, or a shiny object. I chose to do a spoon. Here we have a quick portrait of one of my friends who kind of suggested me to do this on Instagram, and I kind of just went away with it, and here's the end result. It's kind of ridiculous. So we have some portrait design as well as a full body piece for summer and some more eye practices for the warm-up. Enjoyed doing the warm-ups, really. So we have another 2-point perspective here, but this one was for a cityscape. I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do for the cityscape, so I did a YouTube tutorial and I got this idea. It was very fun, and you can see this little dot here by my finger for some multiple point perspective. Here we have a stippling treescape as well as some ink drawings of a cup of venom / coffee and just some line work for another brush pen. Here, this was a brown paper bag assignment that we more or less had to draw a brown paper bag of any kind. I found this one from Amazon from a few weeks earlier. Here are some more stippling designs. Stippling is probably one of my favorite drawing styles to do in when you want to do something random but collective. It was very fun, but I felt like I could have pushed myself a little bit more, especially in the last one. And so, some more caricatures here. This was after I took a break and became a bit sloppy. And you'll see a few more of these, but the faces, I don't often forget too much of that. So that practice did make perfect, more or less. We have some odd shapes that I was experimenting with for heads, as well as this weird bird thing that is not really a bird thing, but it's a bird thing. So this was a weirder page than the others, but this one here was a bit more controlled. I was experimenting with lips and how many lines actually make up a pair of lips. This Bender from Futurama again, because he has nothing but simple shapes to do. And I like this one more than the previous pages. So I just used a blue brush pen and did some standard faces, and I elongated two of them. This gentleman here and this gentleman here were caricatures of Hispanic people that I met, and they really enjoyed the caricatures that I made. This one here is a caricature of a chef. You can find that video up here. And some of the non-photo blue doesn't show up on camera, but I did some more caricatures of others as well. So here we have some treescapes and another sketch of Alexandrina. This red pencil that I used is more or less very hard to capture on camera at times, and when pulling it up like this, it kind of messes up the camera. But I like the landscapes that I did here. One more centered, one more towards the left, and one more towards the right. So for this tree, I was experimenting with bark textures, so I used a lot of cross hatching, and that was the main takeaway from this page though, and it was very fun and experimental. It helped me in my painting class as well. Speaking of painting class, here are some thumbnails for a still life that I had to paint. Very similar in the style of the red pencil portraits that I did earlier, as well as some standard graphite drawings as well in pencil. Here I did some experiments with the skull because I realized I never really knew how to draw the human skull properly, so I decided to change that and do some skulls. And before we get to those swatches, here is a quick little anime drawing of Totoro and Pikachu hiding in a pair of in a bunch of bushes. You know what I meant. So here we have some swatches for the Alexandrina sketch, which is here. There you go. So that's a lot of the main paints that I wanted to do for this piece when I started painting, but I kind of laid everything out. I copied and scanned some things and laid everything out before I started drawing. So on to some of these. This is a orange gradient. I kind of failed doing this one, but I had to use a lot of extender and black to make it go from dark to light. And I did this one in 3 different colors, obviously, but this one was much more fun because these are kind of Art Nouveau style backgrounds that you can use, and you can add something on top of it, which is what I may do in the future. Had fun doing that one. So we have the standard color wheel. I used this in my painting class and it really helped out a lot, even though my purples and oranges were kind of off. They were just kind of off. That was weird. But all the colors are there, mostly. Here is an egg, which was an experimentation on the blue roundedness as well. I got this one right the first time, so I was happy. and the shine in the middle kind of makes it look like a cave. But here are the rainbow gradients from dark to light and then darker to lighter. So you got the 6 main colors, and color theory is a very cruel mistress, but it was fun to do and some very great practice. That's just a receipt. I bought this thing at Walmart a few months before. I always keep my receipts to help me understand when and where I bought my sketchbooks. It's always good to keep track. And so I believe that is the end of this little tour. This was again one of my most experimental ones. I met a lot of people who helped me understand some art concepts that I never knew, as well as some artistic concepts that I never even explored by myself. So it's always good to have someone push you to doing that. So with that being said, I will catch everyone later. Well, actually,